Logos Bible Software organizes a lot of its interface around what they call guides. And guides are different ways to study the Bible text, to call up information from your library on specific passages, or even to study a topic within the biblical text. They're really a central way that the program has been designed. Logos focuses on these a lot in their training. They view them as really useful for Bible students in a variety of ways. They are integral to the program's philosophy because a lot of the way that the information is served up in the guides is replicated in other places in the program. So learning to use these well is really critical. It helps you know how the program works, but it also gives you a great way to get into the Bible text in a lot of different ways. This screencast is going to be a quick overview of what each guide does and when it's best to use it. Other screencasts are going to address each of the guides in depth. Underneath the Guides option on the toolbar, there are 5 different guides there: the Passage Guide, the Exegetical Guide, the Bible Word Study, the Sermon Starter Guide, and the Topic Guide. The best way to think of these is whether or not they focus on the text or on a topic. The Passage Guide and the Exegetical Guide and the Bible Word Study all focus on the biblical text. The Passage Guide is a bird's eye view. The Exegetical Guide is a in-depth view of each word in a passage, and the Bible Word Study focuses on one particular word. So they each focus on the biblical text, but they do it in slightly different ways. The Topic Guide obviously is a way to focus on a particular topic or a concept. The Sermon Starter Guide is slightly different because it can accept both text and topic focus, so it enables you to take either of those to start your research. Which one of these you're going to use will depend upon what you are doing and the task you have in front of you and what you hope to accomplish through your study. Let's start with the Passage Guide. The Passage Guide is designed to help you look at a particular Bible passage. For example, the only input that it will accept here is the biblical text, and as you see, I have Genesis 3:16 selected, and once I click that, it will begin to serve up information. Now, let me close these things down so you can get a better look at what this information is. A lot of this information is geared towards, as I said before, a bird's eye view of the passage and how it fits within the biblical context. For example, you can see that there are cross-references and parallel passages that are served up to you. These are helpful for getting a sense of what the passage is doing in reference to other passages in Scripture. It's a very canonical focus, and it's designed to give you basic information about the entirety of the passage. So, for example, you can look at various commentaries of your particular text. You can look at particular outlines of your particular biblical text. It's all designed to help you see the passage as a whole and how it works. So this is a great place to go if you're looking at a paragraph, if you're just getting oriented to a particular Bible passage, or if you need to look at a broad amount of material as you're working through a particular passage in your study. The Exegetical Guide is similar to the Passage Guide in that it also accepts Bible references, so it's appropriate for studying a particular portion of Scripture, either a paragraph or a verse. But it serves up the information in a different way. It serves up analytical, particular information about the words in a passage. So, for example, you'll notice that when I enter Genesis 3:16, I'm presented with some different things than I saw in the Passage Guide. Let me close these so that you can see them a little more carefully. You'll see apparatuses, grammars, visualizations, and word by word. This is technical information that is geared towards helping you understand a lot of the details about how a particular passage is working relative to the words, to the language, and to the phrasing. For example, the apparatuses are text-critical apparatuses that contain this particular verse. The grammars serve up information related to in this instance, the Hebrew grammar of the passage. The word by word, as you can tell, is a very in-depth presentation of evidence that focuses on the particular words of the passage, from the lexical term to the parsing to the various lexical tools that you can use to pull up the information. So the long and short of it is that the Passage Guide is the bird's eye view, the Exegetical Guide is the in-depth information for each particular word in a passage. So it's much more technically oriented and much more analytically oriented, enabling you to look at the particular details of each verse that you call up. The Bible Word Study is like the Exegetical Guide in that it serves up information on the words in a passage, but instead of focusing on all the words, it focuses on a single word. You can start with either English, Hebrew, or Greek. And for example, here you can see I've typed in the Greek word iudaizo, and then it will serve up all kinds of information about it. For example, I can look up different lexica and investigate the meaning that way. I can look at how it is handled in the Septuagint. I can look at different senses of the word based upon the sense lexicons that Logos has. I can look at, for example, other textual searches and see how the word is used in the Septuagint and the Apostolic Fathers, etc. So this is similar to the passage in the Exegetical Guide in that it's focusing on the text, but it's focusing on a single word. It allows me to think about how the word is working in the passage and then how that word is working in other passages throughout the biblical text. As you can imagine, the topic guide focuses not on Bible references, but on particular topics. Think entries for encyclopedias or Bible dictionaries. For example, if I enter the word belief, it will look up into all of my Bible dictionaries and find articles that contain that term in the head word. It will also look up particular illustrations. It'll look up media resources. It'll look up all of these different things to cover this particular topic. So this is designed to help be a broad, concept-focused study. It does sometimes connect with biblical passages, but it's a different way to approach learning and studying the biblical text. The Sermon Starter Guide is an interesting guide because it can accept either. It can accept either a biblical reference or it can accept a topic. The reason this is the case is, the argument would be is that you might start a sermon by thinking about a particular passage or by focusing on a particular topic. What it will do is it will serve up teaching type information, for example, visuals or topical ideas or sermons or outlines. It's imagining that you are going to be studying the Bible for presentation, and so it serves up information that will help you in that regard. For example, you can see here in what I've just pulled up in terms of suffering that there are several images of Christ on the cross. The argument is that you might be able to use these as you're teaching, and so it's going to be thinking about that from the standpoint of presentation. The last thing I want to discuss with you is which guide do you use and when. As I've mentioned, the guides that focus on the text are useful when you're studying a particular passage. The passage guide will be helpful when you're looking at the passage either for the first time or when you need to go through a large amount of text and get an overview. The exegetical guide is useful when you're doing your detailed work and you want to go through each particular word in turn. And then the word study is useful when you've done that and you've found the key words in the passage and you need to investigate those more carefully. The topic guide is going to be very helpful when you're thinking, obviously topically, but also once you've looked at a particular passage and you realize that it focuses on a particular theme. For example, obviously the baptism of Jesus is going to focus on baptism, and that would be a great time to use both the passage guide and the topic guide. The sermon starter is very helpful when you're getting ready for presentation. As I said, it's going to serve up information to you that is useful for visuals, for overviews, for communication. So that's focused on a slightly different task. So it's useful at the end of the process, not necessarily at the beginning. The long and short is that each of the guides is very helpful, and I would encourage you to play with them, to work with them, and to use them regularly so that you can get more proficient in your use of Logos and get a lot more use out of the software.